Sydney absolutely is running towards the city of no grandchildren. As a young person, you can't afford to be here, and Yimby's trying to turn this around.
Sydney YIMBY stands for Yes in My Backyard. Social justice is a massive part of what drives me.
I was homeless for a period of time. It is genuinely life-changing to have stable and secure housing. I'm saying yes to higher density because that's what really will help us. Yimby is about making sure that my kids will have a home in the future.
Who's known somebody who moved away from Sydney just because they couldn't afford it anymore?
We have to address housing supply. We are part of Greater Sydney and we are in the middle of a housing crisis.
Save our suburbs. Save our suburbs. Save our...
I do have concerns of low quality, high density housing. It's not good. My fear is that we're building slums of the future.
The great Australian dream, as they say, is dying fast.
We are a broad church membership. We're made up of people of all ages, renters and owners, all kinds of jobs, because housing does really affect everyone.
It's a mild autumn afternoon and a few Sydney Yimbys are about to go to Hunters Hill Council for a vote on a multi-storey development.
We're building the homes and so we won't have homeless people in the future if we build enough homes.
Little faces poking out. They're happy because they have a house.
Yimby stands for Yes in My Backyard. It's a growing social movement advocating the right to shelter and increased housing density.
We became a family of Yimbys before even using that term, so we've had some pretty poor rental experiences.
I was living in a mouldy heritage conserved terrace with Emily being 7 months pregnant while my local MP was campaigning against 7 stories just down the road.
And so we put in a notice to move, so they took us to the tribunal and we showed them all of this paperwork of us asking again and again, hey, can we not live in a place full of black mould, and them ignoring us.
And seeing the link between my bad housing experience and the prevention of something better being built has been significant for me. I feel a sense of moral obligation to build a better city for the next generation.
In 2015, Justin started campaigning for increased housing density in his local area. He wasn't the only one.
The first time I turned up to a council meeting, it was alone. And the next time I turned up, there were a couple of us. And then there were 20 of us.
Sydney YIMBY formed in April 2023. We're like, oh, we're actually saying yes to development. Me too. Why don't we start something?
Yeah, that would be a cool house configuration.
Melissa wants to see more housing supply in Sydney, both as a single mum and town planner.
I grew up on the street I currently live on, so when I had my son Max, I wanted to give him the same lifestyle that I had. And so as prices keep going up, having to move is something that is constantly on my mind. It's important that this master plan brings more homes so that maybe I can one day afford that as well.
Now, through Sydney YIMBY, she campaigns for higher density by changing planning controls like zoning. But often, Melissa and her fellow Yimbys face opposition from residents wanting to conserve the character of where they live.
We acknowledge the design challenges for the 2 apartment towers and that attempts have been made to soften the impact of the now proposed 19-storey towers, which we still consider too high, out of context with the surrounding area and setting a dangerous precedent.
Councillors, any further speakers for the motion? Councillor Vergara.
Council has had this for more than 20 years. Let's not have another 22 years go by and have the need for 100 stories. Let's just get this done.
Today, despite objections from some councillors and the public, the motion for the Gladesville Master Plan has passed.
All those in favour? Against? That is carried.
It's a small victory, but it's taken decades. And for Yimbys like Emily, time is running out. She was homeless as a teenager, and doesn't want others to go through that experience.
I had a really tough situation when I was growing up. I left home as a teenager and was homeless for a period of time. So, you'd go somewhere for a sleepover on a Friday night, try and stretch it to the weekend so that you had a good amount of safety for then. Maybe they'll let you stay a week, maybe 2. There have been times where I have slept outside, and there have been so many times that I've slept on a couch or slept on the floor in someone's room. Look at this.
It's still a raw memory for Emily and a difficult one to share with her daughter.
Then I went to the Riddells and I said, "Can I stay with you?" And Uncle Lewis gave me a big hug and said, "For as long as you need." I eventually lived with a family friend, and if I didn't have people to go to who did have safe, secure housing themselves, I don't know that I would be here. And so how on earth could I experience that, get into safe housing now and go, "Oh, well, if I don't like the look of something, I don't think it should exist." People need to face the reality of the housing crisis. I care about social justice. I care about everyone getting a home. And if most of our wage went to housing, well, I'd have nothing left for this. It's because of that safety that we're able to do the advocacy.
Hi.
How are you?
Good.
Great to see you.
Let's do it.
In Sydney, just about everyone agrees we're in a housing crisis, but opinions are divided as to the solution.
What do you think about apartments?
The apartment living is fine. We have to face the fact that if a good percentage of us want to live in big cities, we have to have that.
Yeah.
Today, Emily and fellow Yimby ARCs are in the inner west of Sydney, talking to residents about multi-storey apartments in their area. They're trying to change the conversation around housing.
I've seen some really nice apartment shops and
with
stuff
all of that density
that bring more of a community instead of a ghetto.
It's so nice to hear that your sons being able to live in apartments has kept them close to you, because we hear a lot about the city with no grandchildren.
I'm in a housing commission.
Yeah.
I don't have any son in my unit. So how can we increase the density of this living arrangement, but without undermining people's quality of life?
In Australia, one barrier to development are the heritage laws. The Yimbys want that changed.
So 43% of the inner west is covered in heritage. What do you think about changing those laws so that we can get some more housing?
My heart says we need to do what we need to do for people. Ooh, but when you walk around a place, there is something about history that speaks to us, and to lose them completely, my heart would miss that.
And many have deeply personal reasons for being anti-development.
As soon as I saw you guys, I was like, oh, those people, if you come down my street, you won't be welcomed. Because I do have a house, but I've inherited it because my mum's dead. So I would fight tooth and nail to any developer because the vestige of that home is all I have left.
The term Yimby plays on the less than flattering NIMBY, short for not in my backyard. It's used to describe residents who don't want local development.
I think a NIMBY is someone who wants to protect anything that will impact the quality or the value of their home, and that includes having an enormous apartment being built across the road. I'm not against NIMBYs because it is damn hard to buy a property these days. Look, Sydney's in the depths of the crisis. You've got emergency services workers unable to live in inner parts of Sydney because they can't afford it. So when you get to that level, you start to see that a city can't function properly.
The Sydney Yimbys know this all too well. Today, they're attending a nurses and midwives conference. They're collecting signatures to support increased density of housing in the suburb of Camperdown, just a short walk from the Royal Prince Alfred Hospital.
I mean, the thing that I just kept thinking is the government owns this land, and 100 homes, especially so close to like one of the biggest hospitals in Sydney. What a massive waste. These people who give so much, they deserve better than they're getting for housing. It made 100% sense for us to really fight for this.
The New South Wales government is planning to build 100 apartments at the Camperdown site, but the Yimbys want a lot more. They're running a petition asking for a 20-storey development with a 30% social housing component.
We work so hard as nurses, blood, sweat and tears literally in our jobs. With the increased cost of living, it's just really, it's a challenge to just survive, really. To be honest, in the next few years, I don't think I'll be able to continue to afford to live in New South Wales. I'll probably have to move interstate.
I'm an enrolled nurse that lives and works in the Tweed region. I've now moved back in with my 33-year-old son, fiancé. But without that, I'd probably be living in my car. The great Australian dream, as they say, is dying fast.
Well, hopefully we can ask the government to make some decisions that really get new homes on the ground as soon as possible.
But while some see these sorts of developments as crucial to solving the housing crisis, others are put off by reports of poor builds and defects.
If this goes ahead, it's going to go ahead here and here. It's going to change the nature.
For inner west residents like John, the concept of 20-storey builds is concerning. He's worried new developments like Camperdown might be of dubious quality.
My concern is that once the high-density housing occurs over there, it's just going to be the start of this whole area getting built out in an inappropriate way. The low-quality, high-density housing, it's not good. If this becomes the model, what's to stop this becoming 30 stories? I mean, that's what scares the crap out of me.
But for Yimbys like Erin, the housing crisis will only be solved when far more apartments are built. She was forced to move to the outer suburbs of Sydney because of the skyrocketing cost of housing.
When we bought the house, I was pregnant and I was really looking forward to having a full year of parental leave. Can we give you a cuddle? Yay!
But Erin's hopes of spending time with her kids were dashed as interest rates rose relentlessly.
How was your day at school?
She was forced to go back to work.
It's really hard. Felicity, our youngest, has been in daycare 5 days a week since she was 6 months. If everything goes according to plan, I'm commuting 4 hours a day. The days I go into the city, I see her for 10 minutes in the whole day. That's 3 days a week.
I think it goes here.
And how does that feel?
It's really awful. Zebra, lion and moose ran out and bear was right behind them. They hid behind the bushes where they hoped you wouldn't find them. Moose said marvellous. I get frustrated when people think that preserving an infinite number of California bungalows is more important than enabling families to live and thrive close to where they work. My faith informs everything I do, and for me, loving your neighbour as yourself means trying to fight for ways to make lives of those who are struggling, those who are vulnerable, better.
In her 20s, Erin lived in Sydney's inner west, where she paid just $100 a week for rent. The city then had a buzzing nightlife, and Erin spent time with friends, watching live music and getting involved in the art scene.
So this is an iconic Sydney pub, the Hopetown Hotel. It closed in 2009 after a lot of noise complaints. The Chemical Brothers played here, Jet played here,
I mean, the fact that this amazing music venue was shut because of noise complaints, the building is heritage listed, but it's become completely useless. It's just such a profound metaphor for what Sydney's become.
It's like, for me, it just seems like we lived in different cities growing up.
So this artwork is by Daniel O'Toole.
Sydney's not just losing nurses and essential workers, artists and creatives are also being forced out by the impossibly high cost of living. Daniel made his name as a street artist in Sydney, but moved to Melbourne in 2019 when he found a cheap sharehouse there. Now he's an established multimedia artist visiting Sydney for the opening of a new exhibition.
At least it's working now. I do quite like the idea of being able to live back in Sydney at some stage because I'd be closer to my parents and my brother. I think for me, on an artist income, it's not possible.
Hi, Daniel.
Hello. How you going?
Nice to see you.
Nice to see you. Come through.
So we've been walking around Sydney today, talking a bit about how the city's changed. What's your experience been?
Newtown usually is my old stomping ground that I rush back to, and it felt a bit risky and it felt very safe to be unique. You'd see people with a snake draped around their shoulders, and now it feels like pretty safe. There's a lot of kind of like yoga studios and yogurt bars, and probably really nice for families, but yeah, super expensive and just a different vibe. And I do have a huge group of friends from my artistic community that are in Melbourne that have all sort of migrated and
Just jump ship.
Yeah, creative refugees is the term I've heard thrown around. Yeah, I think the thing we're losing when creative communities are forced out and can't afford housing in central areas is, yeah, that vibrancy and that excitement culturally in the landscape.
I know there's a lot of really great effort from government that we need to revitalise the art scene, but if you can't make the living in a city affordable, then the art scene gets restricted to disproportionately people of privilege and those whose work is acceptable to people who are making funding decisions.
Arcs is renting in the inner west suburb of Erskineville. Like many young people nowadays, he spends 80% of his income on housing.
It is something that I'll have to pay for, the foreseeable future for a long time because I'm never going to be able to afford to buy it. The reality of owning my own home in my lifetime is it's probably moving out of Sydney. It's actually really scary because I look at my friends and it just seems like the biggest factor of what their future is going to look like is not what they do for themselves, it's their family wealth.
Hey, how are you doing?
There has been a basic idea in Australia that upward mobility can be attained if you want to move upward. You go to TAFE or you go to university, you do work and you work up a deposit to eventually own a home. That upward mobility in society seems to be getting away from an average income earner in Sydney. Younger Australians who are renting are not saving. They're going backwards. At this point, I don't think that an average income earner between the ages of 20 and 35 will be able to own a home in Sydney without the help of mum and dad.
That's certainly the reality for Arcs and his friends. Today, he and Emily are meeting these young Sydney-siders to see how they're impacted.
Living with family it's quite limiting. So I can't actually involve myself in a relationship because I don't have the privacy. My parents' bedroom is like share a wall and my other sisters share a wall. It's not the greatest situation. I don't have any possible prospects of being able to rent in the next 5 years, even with a graduate job.
The places that used to be affordable, they no longer are.
Even for us, we have rusty water.
How much do you guys pay?
For our rent?
Yeah.
I pay $2.92, which is really good for Ashfield.
Currently, I share a room with one of my sisters. We're playing a juggling act between sharing a tiny space and living at home.
For young people like these, moving out of home means paying rent of around $300 a week for a small room in the city.
How old are you?
21.
What do you think your housing situation would be at 25?
I think I'll still be sharing.
We don't want to leave, but we're being priced out to the point where I can't afford it here anymore. I work a full-time job and I also study part-time. I also tutor on the side just to make it so I can afford living in Sydney. It's not just housing, you have to afford your housing and you have to pay for your food and like hanging out with your friends. Do you not want us to socialise anymore?
Do you have plans about family planning or anything?
No, not too expensive. I wouldn't have kids just for the simple sake of I wouldn't have the time to give to them under my economic position, even though that is something that would bring me a lot of joy and is something that I would love to do.
It's like really stunting our growth.
People are saying that like they're blaming it on us for like birth rates are so low. Well, why are birth rates so low? Just look at how our society's built. We don't even have like the housing that can give us the security to even have children.
This is not something that we're going to solve quickly. We might still have to be fighting this fight, but it's worth it. See you later.
So, will the Yimbys' mission of advocating for housing density actually work?
Yes, I think that housing supply is absolutely the solution. We need many more houses created because there is too much demand. We're building around about 180 to 190,000 dwellings every year. Now, to meet demand, you need about 240,000 dwellings every year. The issue I have with it, and this is where Yimbys fall short, on the demand side, demand is too strong. It does come down to investors and the willingness to change the tax rules around demand for investors through changes to negative gearing or through changes to capital gains tax concessions. But leading into the last election, whenever anyone touched the idea of changes to negative gearing, it was really poo-pooed. So for major change, the Yimby movement needs to affect the political class. It hasn't so far.
First, second, third and final time. Get that dog barking. Sitting. Done. Salty. Congratulations.
For the Yimbys, the answer isn't tax reform. They want more housing. But despite the New South Wales government tightening regulation on new builds, not everyone is convinced.
I think a lot of developers are making a lot of money out of the fear of the housing crisis. You look at a lot of the stuff that's going up and it's all out of the same playbook. It all looks the same. It's high quality in some areas and then it's really low quality in other areas. And it's done without care. Housing's important. Sustainable housing's important. I'm pro appropriate progress. I'm pro things that improve people's quality of life. And I haven't seen a lot of it at the moment. The solution to a housing crisis is not cram people in, just put a roof over their head in a place that is almost unlivable. You know, my fear is you're building slums of the future.
So what is the solution? No one wants defective high-rises or indeed new slums. But for Emily, apartment living can offer a way forward.
Look at places in Europe like the Netherlands or Paris, places in America that have good density, places in Asia like Singapore. This is something that we can do.
And here in Sydney, people are starting to view apartment living in a new light. Today, Emily's visiting Nightingale Marrickville. What was once a church is now low-cost rental apartments.
We all need to live in communities, and I suppose this particular facility is a micro focus of how that can happen.
Lots of things happen in here. People just come and cook if they need a bit more space, watch a movie together, work, play games. Yeah.
Karen moved in here 12 months ago with her teenage daughter. Her initial doubts about living in a relatively small space disappeared when she began to enjoy the benefits of communal living.
Communal areas are very beautiful. We often have movie nights. You know, when you're a single parent, you know you can't do it on your own. To be building relationships with people where I can say, hey, I just need this. Have you got it? And it's simple things. Yeah, it means a lot. Living here has meant that I can continue to work at a place that I love, that I can continue to be in really close proximity to our daughter's other household, that there's been stability. And I think that stability translates into stability of mental health for myself and for our daughter. And I think stability is probably the word.
6 months after the Nurses and Midwives Conference, where the Yimbys campaigned for higher density housing in Camperdown, they've had a victory.
Essential worker housing and housing available on the private market, this is exactly the sort of development that we need in the inner west to fix the housing supply crisis.
The government announced 500 units, with at least 200 going to essential workers. At the community consultation for the development, the Yimbys are thrilled.
So you can't help but smile when you actually talk about things like this. Nurses and midwives from RPA who are going to be able to live a 10-minute walk from there. I mean, I feel like really emotional looking at it because, like, we're finally here. 2028, they're coming in.
Like, I'm actually going to see this.
So much effort, so much strategy in terms of putting the petition together, getting the stories from the nurses.
A lot of people signed it, and so I'm really proud of myself and Daddy and everyone. Yay! It's really like something that we've actually done, and like that's so many more people who are going to have a home. It's crazy.
Nice work.
Nice work. Well done, Sydney YIMBY.
We did it.
We did it. Oh.
Sydney's worth fighting for. I don't want us to keep pushing people out. Like, I'm fighting for those people and fighting for people who are here and struggling. It's such a big deal. We now have this. It looks like such a great space. There is now going to be more affordable housing on that site. To Camperdown and to more housing. Yeah!